Heterocyclic amines. In this section, you will learn how to identify the type of the heterocyclic amines in a given organic compound. Now, first we'll see what is a heterocyclic amines. So these are ring structures. More specifically, they can be 5-atom containing rings or 6-atom containing rings. The specialty of these heterocyclic amines are these compounds contain at least one nitrogen atom. Now we'll see what are the 5-atom containing rings and 6-atom containing rings. So in the 5-atom containing rings, the simplest heterocyclic amine is the pyrrolidine. So this compound is a ring that contains 4 carbon atoms and 1 nitrogen atom. And as you see, all of these bonds are single bonds. And the second structure, which is pyrrole, has everything as in pyrrolidine, and in addition, there are 2 double bonds. So this is called pyrrole. In the third structure, now you can see it contains an extra nitrogen atom, so altogether 2 nitrogen atoms and 2 double bonds. And this structure is called imidazole. Pyrrolidine, pyrrole, and imidazole are the heterocyclic amines that contains 5-atom rings. Now we'll see what are the 6-atom rings. The simplest one is piperidine. This piperidine is the active ingredient containing in black pepper. So this is the compound that gives the taste and aroma for the black pepper. So as you see, there are 5 carbon atoms and 1 nitrogen atom in piperidine. So in the second structure, which is called as pyridine, this is an aromatic compound because there are 3 double bonds and 1 nitrogen atom. Pyridine has 5 carbon atoms and 1 nitrogen atom and 3 double bonds. And the third structure is pyrimidine. This pyrimidine has everything contained in pyridine, and in addition, there is 1 more nitrogen atom. So altogether, 2 nitrogen atoms in pyrimidine. The fourth structure is called purine. Purine has 2 cyclic structures, and pyrimidine and purines are containing in nucleotides. In DNAs and RNAs, these are the heterocyclic amines that present as the nitrogenous base, one of the component in the nucleotides. So all of these are heterocyclic amines, and we will see where we can see these heterocyclic amines. So one example is our alkaloids. Alkaloids are the natural compounds that are synthesized by plants, or these are amines those are synthesized by plants. And these are physiologically active compounds, which means once they enter our body, they can do some function, a physiological function. Now, for this reason, these alkaloids are used as anesthetic drugs or antidepressant drugs and as stimulants, and also they can be habit forming, which means they can be addictive if we take them for a long period of time. I have given here 2 examples. Nicotine, nicotine is an alkaloid that comes from plant, and nicotine, like when you take this structure, the reason I'm giving these structures are because you should be able to identify what is the type of heterocyclic amines present in these compounds. Now, if you take nicotine, you can see it contains a pyridine ring. Pyridine is the 6 carbon atom containing heterocyclic amine with three double bonds and one nitrogen atom. So this is the pyridine ring, and this is called the pyrrolidine. Pyrrolidine is the cyclic amine without any double bonds and with five carbon atoms and one nitrogen atom. So it contains pyridine and pyrrolidine, and nicotine is a stimulant that increases the level of adrenaline. It's a hormone that secrete from the adrenal glands in our body, and it can also increases the heart rate and increases blood pressure once it's in our system. Um, and this is an addictive compound because this can stimulate the pleasure points in our brain system. The second example is caffeine. And what is the heterocyclic amine present in caffeine? So this is a purine containing compound. So the purine structure, you can see the purine structure in the caffeine. So caffeine contains in tea, coffee, soft drinks, and energy drinks. It stimulates our central nervous system to increase alertness, but it can make sleep problems as well if we take in excess amounts. So that's another natural compound. And two other alkaloids are given here, morphine and codeine. So these are alkaloids found in opium poppy plant. So these drugs, these are actually used as drugs. So these are extracted from the poppy plant. And now, what is the heterocyclic amine present in morphine and codeine? So when we say it's a heterocyclic amine, remember this should contain a nitrogen atom, right? So where this nitrogen atom connected? Now you can see the nitrogen atom is connected to two carbon atoms here, and this is the cycle that we are looking for. And to identify what is the cycle, count how many atoms are there in this complete cycle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's a 6-atom ring with one nitrogen atom and no double bonds. So we can identify this structure, or we can identify this heterocyclic amine as the pyridine ring. Okay, and codeine has the same cyclic amine with 6 atoms. So it's the same pyridine ring present in the morphine and codeine. So these are used as painkillers. But if prolonged intake of these drugs can make us addictive for the drugs. So in pharmaceutical sciences, scientists are looking for substitutes for these drugs, which can keep the pain-killing activity but eliminate these addictive properties. Okay, now we will see what are the neurotransmitters. So in this section, we will see the role of amines as the neurotransmitters. So these neurotransmitters are components in our nervous system. Now, these are chemical compounds. So that's why we are learning them here. And more specifically, these are amines. And these are the chemical compounds in our body or in our nervous system that transmits an impulse, a nerve impulse from one nerve cell to another or to a target cell. So these target cells can be another nerve cell or a muscle cell or a gland cell. To understand the function of neurotransmitters, we will see the structures of neurons and what exactly these neurotransmitters do. Now, in our nervous system, the unit cell is called the neurons that makes this impulse transmission uh, occurs. Now, this neuron is the nerve cell, and you can see the one neuron in here. So these neurons have some parts. So you see the nucleus in here, and the cell body is showing here in purple color. And from the cell body, there are some filaments projecting outside, and these are called dendrites. And there is another uh, filament, a long filament just projecting outside of the cell body, and this is called the axon. The axon ends from a place called axon terminals. Okay? Now, uh, these nerve cells are joined together. So they are actually attached together, or they should be able to transmit signals from one nerve cell to another nerve cell. So this is how the impulse transmission happens. The axon terminals are just connected with the dendrites of another nerve cell. This the junction is called as a synapse. Now this zoom in picture is showing here. So this is the junction, and this junction is called a synapse. Now, within this nerve cell, there are neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters are synthesized inside the nerve cells. And in this picture, you see these small vesicles. Those small vesicles are kind of like as a sphere. They are like spheres. So they contains these neurotransmitters. Our nervous system functions by sending messages as electrical signals. Now, these electrical signals first comes to the cell body through the dendrites, and then it comes along the axon and until the axon terminal to move into this next cell body. Now, there is this junction is called the synapse, and the neurotransmitters are just acting as the chemical signal molecules to communicate between these two nerve cells. So it communicate in between the axon terminal of one nerve cell and the dendrites of the second nerve cell. Now, when the electrical signal just reaches the axon terminal, these neurotransmitters are just released into the synapse. And then the receptors on the dendrites of the second neuron cell will just receive these neurotransmitters. So just like that, this is a very quick process, and you can imagine how quick is the process because throughout there's a network of nerve cells in our nervous system. So, and these cells are there are thousands of millions of cells, nerve cells in the nervous system. So this messenger process happens very quickly, and the neurotransmitters are the molecules that communicate in between these nerve cells to transmit these signals faster. So neurotransmitters can be function in two ways. One is called excitatory, which means it stimulates the receptors to send more impulses. For example, the receptors are in dendrites of the nerve cells. So once they are in the synapse, they will just stimulate these receptors to send more and more signals. And also neurotransmitters can be inhibitory just by decreasing the activity of the receptors of the dendrites. so they can inhibit sending the nerve signals. There are different ways to terminate the signals by neurotransmitters. So one way is that simply the neurotransmitters can just diffuse away from the synapse, um, just to stop sending the signals. Or they can be, there are enzymes which can break down the receptors in the dendrites. And another way is just by reuptaking uh, these neurotransmitters back to the vesicles that they were contained in the axon terminals. So those are the three different ways that neurotransmitters can terminate sending the signals. Okay, so now we will see some examples of neurotransmitters. So I mentioned these are amines, which contains nitrogen atoms. So the neurotransmitters can be amines or alkyl ammonium ions. Now, when I say alkyl ammonium ions, if you remember, like we discussed about reactions of amines, and the charged amines are called ammonium ions. Now, most of these are alkyl ammonium ions, and neurotransmitters are actually synthesized from a compound called amino acid. Amino acids contain an amine group and a carboxyl acid group, and these are actually the building block of the proteins. So the amino acids can be built up in our body, or they can be obtained from our diets. So these amino acids will convert to neurotransmitters. Um, Now we'll see some examples of neurotransmitters: acetylcholine, dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. So these are just selected examples. And you can see all of them are alkyl ammonium ions because you see this positive charged on the nitrogen atom, right? And there is one additional hydrogen atom or one additional alkyl group as well to make it positively charged. Um, so these are they have different functions, um, and we will see some examples of different neurotransmitters. Um, the acetylcholine function is given here, so basically it has an excitatory function to regulate muscle activation, learning, and short-term memory. So it's a beneficial neurotransmitter. So the dopamine has again excitatory and inhibitory function both. Regulates muscle movements, cognition, sleep, mood, and learning. And deficiency leads to Parkinson's disease and some other conditions like schizophrenia. Um, and these are synthesized in central nervous systems. And norepinephrine has both excitatory and inhibitory functions regards to sleep, focus, and alertness. Epinephrine has an excitatory function, plays a role in sleep and being alert, and is involved in the fight or flight response. That is the function of epinephrine, and it's made in adrenal glands. Serotonin has an inhibitory function which regulates anxiety, eating, mood, sleep, learning, and memory. And histamine can inhibit, it has an inhibitory function involved in allergic reactions, inflammation, and hay fever. So antihistamines can block the receptors of histamine to reduce the allergic reaction symptoms. So you can see the site of synthesis, most of them are synthesized in central nervous system, except epinephrine synthesized in adrenal gland. And also there are some other compounds which can affect the functions of these neurotransmitters. So in this class, you will just need to have a general idea about the neurotransmitters, their names, just by looking at the name to identify whether this is a neurotransmitter or not, and their general functions. You don't need to memorize all of these functions, but have a general idea about what will these transmitters does in our body. Okay, so that's the end of this two sections.